We will now consider log number 5339R1 by Mr. Vasquez. For what purposes the gentleman seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
Will the clerk please distribute the amendment? Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The chair recognizes the gentleman for the purpose of explaining his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My amendment is simple. It prohibits DOD funds for FY26 from being used for the construction of new border wall in areas without an existing barrier until SecDef provides a feasibility study and cost analysis. Now, I've lived on the border my entire life, and I know that there's parts of the border that simply don't need a wall to be secure. And, you know, I'm not the only one who thinks this. In fact, just a few weeks ago, Secretary Hegseth sat in this very room and admitted that there are areas where we just don't need a border wall. And I quote, "I am aware that there are gaps in different places where walls are not as effective as other places, and I get that." That's not fake news. Those are the words spoken by Secretary Hegseth in this very committee room. As I explained then, along many remote stretches of the border, there are much more cost-effective tools to keep our border secure, like ASTs and tactical aerostats that can monitor remote stretches of the border and allow Border Patrol to effectively respond as needed. Border Patrol calls this technology a force multiplier and has consistently asked for this new technology. Now, for example, an AST costs us about $625,000 per mile, while a border wall costs us $20 million per mile. And that AST has much further range and effectiveness than one single stretch of a $20 million per mile wall. In these remote cases, a border wall is a waste of taxpayer funding, is it not? Does this enormous expenditure not fall under the category of wasteful spending when better, more effective technology is readily available? These investments will save taxpayers billions of dollars. And contrary to the President's initial proposal, this is not being paid by Mexico, it's being paid by taxpayers, everybody in this room and everybody in this country. Not only are walls impractical and expensive in remote and rural regions, they also severely impact wildlife corridors for animals such as the pronghorn antelope, the Gould's turkey, the Coues deer, Montezuma quail, animals that we cherish, and in my case, animals that I hunt to put food on the table for my family. A wall near places like the most remote stretches of the Coronado National Forest would impact hunters and hikers' access to federal public lands and desecrate tribal and culturally significant sites along the border. As an example, the massive undertaking it would take just to build a road to the most remote areas of the San Luis Mountains in my district would take hundreds of millions of dollars. That's not counting in the cost of construction for the physical wall itself, if it's even feasible, just to build the roads and infrastructure to build this stretch of wall. Now, that's not taking into account the millions of dollars that it would take to maintain these roads into the future in an area that is prone to massive annual flash flooding. This amendment does not prevent funding to upgrade or replace existing wall, but there is a reason parts of the border, like the Boot Heel in my district, don't have a wall. And Secretary Hegseth and members of this committee must fully understand why a wall has not been built and shouldn't be built before we throw billions of taxpayer dollars down the drain where more effective border security solutions are available. Lastly, DHS was just given $46.5 billion to build the wall in the reconciliation bill. There should be no reason that the Department of Defense should be engaged in this political, ineffective project. DOD should be focused on warfighting, not domestic immigration efforts. Let me be clear, I am fully in support of securing our border, and it is our duty as lawmakers to do so in the most effective and common sense way that accomplishes this goal without needlessly throwing billions of dollars away towards an antiquated and flawed proposal. Thank you. I encourage all members to support my amendment, and I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Gentleman yields back, Chair, and I recognizes himself. This amendment is another political stunt intended to undermine President Trump and his successful border policies. The American people waited 4 years for real leadership at the border. They now have it, and this amendment's trying to kneecap their progress. We've seen the consequences of inaction, and the American people don't want to go back to the days of chaos, confusion, and lawlessness defined by the last administration's policies. I have to oppose the amendment as it delays urgent action to secure our border at a time when national security demands speed and resolve. Does any other member seek recognition on the Vasquez amendment? Gentleman from Virginia, Let me go to Mr. Garamendi of California first, then the gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleague from New Mexico raises a very interesting point. I wasn't going to speak to this, but as he was talking about border walls here, but border walls not there for a variety of reasons, I remember a codel that I actually put together back in the day when the Democrats actually put together codels rather than just attending them. Part of that was to look at the border between Syria and Jordan, which at that time, 7, 8 years ago, was a real chaotic place. I mean, we're talking about Syria just boiling over, people trying to get out and leave, refugees, and they were headed to Jordan. Jordan, with American money, put together a virtual border wall. It involved many of the things that my colleague discussed, using modern technology, drones, sound systems, other kinds of vibrations, systems set in the ground. And they had watchtowers about every quarter mile, maybe a half mile, depending upon where it was. We looked at that on the ground. We spent time talking to the Jordanian police and military and asked him, does this work? There's no wall here. There's not even a fence. Does it work? And he said, oh yeah, it works. Anybody that comes near that border, we know immediately, and a patrol is sent out and they're turned back. It's been in my mind for all these years and kind of sat there until this amendment was put forth and the explanation that there are better ways of doing it, far cheaper, and based upon the experience that we saw in the Jordanian-Syrian border in the midst of the most difficult Syrian uprisings and deaths and the rest of it. It worked. It worked. And so the amendment that we have before us is, let's not waste our money. Waste, fraud, possibly there's fraud. Is there abuse? Well, there's abuse just to move down this path. Surely wasteful. There's a better way, and I thank my colleague for pointing out the cost differential. So what do we want to do here? We want to close the border. Okay, what's the most effective, cost-effective way of doing it? There is a better way. I've seen it. I walked that border with my colleagues on that codel. We talked to the military and the police that were there. Does anybody come through here? No, they don't. And by the way, we do have a specific place for them to go to enter Jordan. And there was a processing system set up there that, by the way, would have been very, very close to the immigration reform that Trump killed so that he could have this issue for his election. I really want to compliment my colleague for at least bringing to our attention that you don't need a wall everywhere. You need a system that is smart, effective, cost-effective. I'd like us to consider this. I don't want us to get caught up in, good or bad. Trump wants a wall, therefore we're going to build a wall. Well, maybe there's a better way. And it turns out there is a much better way. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I oppose this amendment from the gentleman from New Mexico. Thank God we have President Trump back in the White House. And let's be honest and transparent. The crisis at the southern border was wholly one created by failed policies of the Biden administration. Democrat policies told the American people that criminals are good, police are bad, and no one cared about the victims. We don't know if it's 15 million or 20 million illegal aliens came across our border. And illegal criminal aliens trained to the Agua MS-13 have been robbing, raping, and killing American people. And with no effect, the Biden administration could not slow these criminals come across our border, and President Trump secured that border in just a matter of weeks. So I think I would trust the administration that is effective and that considers police good, criminals bad, and he cares about the victims. Thanks to President Trump and his administration, we have record low numbers of border encounters. Additionally, the military presence at the southern border has significantly improved our situation, and we are in a much better position today than we were a year ago. This amendment seeks to impose bureaucratic loopholes that the administration would be required to jump through rather than completing the border wall construction in an expedient and effective manner. This effort further shows how unserious the minority is on the southern border, and I urge opposition to this amendment.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member seek recognition on the Vasquez amendment? Seeing none, the question occurs on the amendment offered by Mr. Vasquez. So many in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I request the recorded vote.
Recorded votes requested, and recorded vote is postponed.